Introducing the epic new Swift. Time to go swifting.
Well. The spin twin threat that nobody saw coming for the Sunrisers, who did not field a single specialist spinner today. Yet, between Abhishek Sharma and Shahbaz Ahmed, they've picked up 5 wickets for 47 in 8 pivotal overs that have turned the tide in this qualifier and that have sent the Sunrisers soaring through to the final to play KKR in a couple of days' time. Rajasthan go out after being 65 for 1, starting well with Jaiswal in the power play. Then they just lost their way. We unpacked this game that had many moments in it on Maruti Suzuki Arena Presents ESPN Cricket for Timeout, powered by JBL. And in the end, while I think Mitch was the only one who called for Sunrisers to defend this score, he thought it would be a close game. 36 runs is a hammering in T20 cricket. We have to start with the spin, which we did not see coming.
The wicket did show signs of a bit of slowness in the first inning, especially with the fast bowlers going really short and their slow balls working. It began to spin actually in the second innings. I thought it's also we should also give credit to the spinners, the way they bowled. If you see the way Ashwin and Yuzi bowled, especially Ashwin, he bowled a lot of arm balls. Didn't bowl too much of off spin, which if he had, we might have seen a little more spin. Yeah. I assume. But the way both the left armers bowled was incredible, especially that knuckle ball. Sorry, the carom ball to get the lefty bowled Hetmeyer ball, yes, was incredible.
I mean, clearly there was no dew.
Well, no, that's interesting, because we had a good conversation downstairs with Buddy Radu, and he said when they used to train there in Chennai, if you only got a little bit of dew, it actually, and it didn't come in heavy, it actually made the surface sticky. He said when they relayed the surfaces, they put a lot more clay content in the top of that block. And he said, so if you just got a little bit of dew, quite often at their trainings, they would come out of the nets, because it was almost impossible to hit the ball on some of their training surfaces. So it kind of alludes that, yeah, there was some dew, but just a little bit of dew, which allowed it to stick. In the first innings, they put up the stat of the degrees of turn. There's 1.8 degrees of turn in the first innings, and then up to 3.3 in the second innings. And I think we could have probably assumed that Ashwin and Chahal would turn it more. Yes, they probably bowled more sliders, but because the wicket wasn't sticking. So there was definitely a change, and that might have been brought on from that dew.
That having been said, Jaiswal and Dhruv Jurel you can bat on this. So how much responsibility do the batters take in spite of how well those two spinners bowled?
Yeah, I mean, Jaiswal's wicket was very critical because he was the left-hander playing really well. That 40, if he had converted that into a big 60 or 70, it would have made it easier. I was surprised Hetmeyer was kept long for so long with 2 left-timers bowling. They promoted Ashwin. Even then, I mean, Hetmeyer got out early, but tactically Rajasthan could have done better. Those 3 wickets, I feel, Jaiswal, Samson and Riyan Parag getting out, made it difficult for them.
Well, they allowed them to cover that bowling slot, didn't they?
Yeah, I was going to say we shouldn't be surprised, because that is the trend.
Yeah.
That we shouldn't be surprised, and every single time we sit here and say that we're surprised with that tactic, to me it was an absolute no-brainer that Hetmeyer had to go in ahead of Dhruv Jurel, regardless of, even though he played really nicely, he would have still played nicely when he got his opportunity, but they needed to negate the 2 left-arm spinners right at the outset, because that was the hole that Sunrisers had in their attack, and they needed to negate that, and they should have sent Hetmeyer in and said, just play your game. Take it down if it's in your zone. Let's get ahead of this game. Do not allow these left-arm spinners to take control of the game. And yes, people will say, oh yeah, we end up getting out to left-arm spin. The game was nearly gone by then, and that was a particularly good ball, a current ball as we mentioned. But if you got ahead of the game, that moment wouldn't have ever happened.
They allowed them to see if the surface was going to turn. That's what they allowed them to do.
You should have taken it away.
Because Shahbaz come in, and then Arbi always see one ball turn, and then Arbi comes in, does the same. You're right. They should have taken their way. They would have the ball.
It was a tactical blunder. Massive tactical blunder.
You're pointing out to the 9th over when Samson was dismissed.
Yes.
And often they tend to say, or we believe the Rajasthan philosophy is that Hetmeyer will not come in the first 10 sometimes not even in the first 12 or 13. That's where the game perhaps was decided.
Which I get. I get the idea of it from time to time, but I think you cannot be set in your ways with regards to your strategy around bowler deployment and batting deployment. You need to move with where the game's moving, and that moment was a critical moment in the game that they could have counterpunched. Sunrisers have said, right, you're not bowling this left-arm spin against us. We're going to throw our ace out at you right now. Hetmyer, you're in.
Yeah, we're going to force you to bowl
If they had taken that couple of overs for 12-15, those left-arm spinner wouldn't have bowled, and the game would have gone in a different direction.
I reckon they would have gone, if Hetmyer walked out after Samson, I don't think they would have bowled the left-arm spinner again.
No,
I think they would have gone back to the seamers.
You have to take into account that Abhishek Sharma hasn't bowled much this whole season. They haven't been bowling Shahbaz through the innings at all, so their confidence was low. But to give them a look into the right-handers was just helping them out.
They're absolutely having a laugh.
Not to mention the short boundary today.
Yeah.
Which perhaps even more would have...
Exactly, because they could have only bowled one end.
Yeah.
And the asking rate was 11, and then Ashwin walking out, and Hetmyer still sitting in the dugout.
I mean, if
It
anything...
doesn't make a sense.
Well, that just put the icing on the cake, didn't it?
Yeah.
They'd say it didn't do much damage. It was only 3 balls. So Hetmyer got in soon enough.
No, but there's game pressure, right? Because then he becomes the last batsman. You know, obviously there was Rodman there as well, but even for Rodman, there's no one behind you.
Yeah.
Like it would be nice knowing that you've got Ashwin behind you. It does have a significant psychological impact.
I think it's important just to mention why they have this philosophy. And my understanding is teams that have this philosophy, they look at all the numbers and they look at when a batsman is at their most effective and where their strike rate is at the most highest point. So you look at all the numbers historically, and
analytical driven, data driven,
totally analytical driven, which is fine. But you also need the human touch as well and the gut feel of a game. And sometimes one can shortcut the other one, massively, which what's happened today. So they will know that at the 13th over, and I'm guessing the number, say 13th or 12th over or 14th over, whether it's Rovman Powell or Hetmyer, their strike rate spikes from that point onwards up to the end of the game. So that's where they believe is the point that batsman needs to go in. But what they don't consider is that batsman also would love a dozen balls to get in first and be, say, 15 off 12 or 16 off 12, or if they get going quickly, they might be 20 off 12. And then they can really have that spike with a full run-up. Instead of going in at that point, expecting to strike at 160 or 180 or whatever that number may be.
All said and done, though, I said, I think at the mid-innings show, this would be a test of Pat Cummins, the captain. And he has brought in Shahbaz with Jaiswal still there. He has got Jaiswal. He's continued the left-arm spinner to eventually dismiss Hetmyer, which perhaps was easier with how well they bowled, but how good today was Pat Cummins, the captain.
Oh, I think he just adapted beautifully to the conditions. I think their hand was forced with regards to the impact sub, Shahbaz coming in, which is fine. But he showed again his versatility as a cricketer and his value as a squad member, because he's considered as someone that they value his runs as much as they value that he can contribute with the ball. They weren't expecting probably 4 overs from him, but still, he's not a part-time spinner. He's a capable spinner, particularly if there's something on offer and he's bowling to right-handers.
To be fair, there were not too many boundary balls that were bowled by them, the occasional one. But between Abhishek and Shahbaz, they've actually bowled well as well. We compare them to Chahal and Ashwin. If you could just extend on that point, why they got so much more turn? Was it the state of the surface? Was it the state of the game? Or just skill?
Look, when I saw their starting 11, I knew Abhishek's going to bowl today. He's a really, really good bowler. I mean, I've seen a lot of him in domestic cricket, and he's one of those bowlers who actually tosses it up a little bit more than the others.
Why don't I just toss that ball over to you? I will pick up those very strong JBL Tune Beam active noise cancelling earphones. They will not be damaged. They are very powerful. So one ball to you, and whoever wants to take Shahbaz as well.
Yeah.
These are arguably not full-time spinners, even though they're better than part-time.
Yeah.
Abhishek's got some variations. Break them down.
Obviously, he bowled that carom ball which comes out from the front of the hand. That was a really, really good ball. That just shows that he has a lot of tricks up his sleeve and that he's a full-time bowler for Punjab. He's one of those bowlers who likes to bowl. He actually tells the captain, you know what, I want to bowl in domestic games. It helps me be in the game more. So he's one of those bowlers one of those all-rounders who look forward to bowl. And the other thing with Abhishek is that he would have been wanting this chance to bowl for the longest time, and he's just lapped it up really well.
Knowing Abhishek as I do, having worked with him, he backs himself. 100% backs himself. Yes, he doesn't bowl as much as he needs to bowl in domestic cricket for whatever reasons, but for the future of Indian cricket, he needs to be bowling because he is a serious package to be reckoned with at the top of the order. Someone that can bowl left arm spin, whatever the format may be, he's going to be a real asset going forward. And the reason that makes him unique as a spinner is, yes, he tosses it up, but he tosses it up because what he tries to do is get overspin on the ball. So the ball comes down like that. Yeah. So Nathan Lyon style, so the ball dips. So he doesn't bowl with side spin, he bowls with overspin and the ball dips. And he's got obviously that clever current ball that he's been working on, which is the one that Hetmai got, was an absolute peach. The line was middle and off, hit the outside of off. It's an absolute dream ball.
There aren't a lot of left-arm finger spinners that bowl the carom ball well, are there?
Not that I'm aware. Certainly not in Australia. Maybe in India.
Maybe we've seen M. Siddharth try something different, but is that a carom?
I think he swings it.
Swings it. Good arm ball.
He's got a great arm ball.
Does he actually have a very unique delivery here for his skill set?
And he's been bowling it for a long time. I've seen him 4 or 5 years ago bowling that to left-handers, and even the right-handers. A lot of right-handers get LBW to him, considering that he's going to spin. When they don't see the delivery coming out of his hand, they misreads it.
Yep. And I mean, is that the one that he also tossed up and almost slipped and Hetmai missed what was a certain boundary?
Yeah,
so it can happen.
Yeah, exactly.
But he's brave to bowl it.
Yeah, look, absolutely. He's a developing bowler. He's not a finished product by any means, but the only way he's going to continue to develop and be a finished product is by bowling more and more and getting those opportunities, whether it be in IPL matches or whether it be domestic matches or for India A or wherever it may be.
Abhishek's carom ball is even more effective in general in domestic also, is because his average pace is a lot slower than normal left arm spinners. So the ball which comes through faster, especially which is coming into you, it just surprises you even more.
What would you have spoken to the Rajasthan batters when that collapse was taking place? Clearly they couldn't get bat on ball to those left-arm spinners all of a sudden. That to be some method of what's our batting approach now, and where do you sense it all went south?
I think those 3 wickets, in my opinion, even Tom Cadmore, I mean, he was struggling in the power play as well. Right. He couldn't get going. He threw up a lot of balls. They would have wanted a little bit more in the power play to get ahead in the game. And those 3 wickets, I think, dented their progress.
But did game awareness not mandate, say, Samson or Rian Parag to inform batters?
Probably Rian Parag.
Playing what they did.
Yeah, probably Rian Parag's one was massive. And he's had a really good season, but at that point in the game where he'd lost a couple of wickets, you just felt you could have tried to hit that for 4 or a lower risk shot. And I know throughout the season he's put that over the fence. But there are little periods of time where you still play strong shots, but you try to take the risk out of that, particularly when you know that your team wants a period in the middle where you kind of recalibrate the innings so you can have Hetmai come in at a certain point, and you know that if you take a risk now and you don't rebuild, that Ashwin is likely to have to come up the order or something like that's going to happen. Yeah. So just a little bit of smarts in terms of the way your team's set up. If your team was set up a little bit differently and you didn't have 2 out-and-out finishers in their blueprint, then by all means you can probably still go. But it kind of disrupted what could have been a relatively easy chase.
Right. Let's take some user questions, of which plenty are coming through. Please send them through on our YouTube Live. And Metsiri Henegedrada, I hope I've certainly not pronounced that right, so I apologize.
It's a superb effort.
Yeah, but second time. You want me to go again? Metsiri Henegedara. That sounds likelier. Thank you, Metsiri. IPL final. Surprising that there are no players from India's World Cup squad participating. That's a thought I had just going through this. What a strange irony. Not even from the reserves. Right?
That actually works out well for them. They get a little more rest before the World Cup.
The eternal optimist for Indian cricket, Varun Aaron.
I mean, if you were a player, obviously they'd be really gutted not to be in the final. But obviously going into a World Cup, getting that a few days extra rest after a very, very long tournament will actually do them good.
And tire out the Aussies as well.
Just pointing out, Rinko in the reserves.
I don't think the question was sort of leaning towards that answer, though.
Yeah,
I think you've slowly misread.
But I chose to give that answer because that's the way they
You need to get off that
Cummings
fence.
and Travis.
Yeah,
You want to exhaust him a little bit more.
We are exhausting Pat
And Travis
Travis
Head.
Andre Klaassen.
Mitchell Stark.
Yeah, exactly.
Mitchell Stark,
Yeah, they're
I
hardly.
think the competition.
Okay, I'm being told we must be one at a time over here, right? So the answers are clear. So let's try and do that as much as we can. Let's take some more questions, shall we? I'll do that too if I can. Yeah. Devang Sharma, Rohman Powell is an international batter who plays in the middle order and you keep pushing him down below 8, including below Ashwin. Then why pick him at the auction? There are a few more on Powell on even the ability to finish off games of which he's not done enough. Is there any merit?
Look, I understand that the potential criticism, but I think it's more to do with he's been given very little opportunity to have an impact on any game. He bats 4 for the West Indies, 4 or 5. He's used to batting sort of, before the 10 over mark, and he's used to sort of guiding the team through to that finishing point. He's coming in when it's nearly mission impossible. He came in probably when it was 16 and over, and they're asking him to pull them out of the fire, which he has done 1 or 2 times. He certainly did it against Punjab and KKR. And it's an impossible job to do. So I just think they're asking too much of 2 quality finishers, Hepmeyer and Power, and the finisher, position doesn't mean you have to go in at the 16th or 17th over. It just means that you have the ability to actually accelerate once you get set, but they're not allowing them to get set.
I mean, Nicholas Pooran is one kind of a player. He's also one of the finisher, but you would want him to bat a lot more balls so he can do a lot more damage.
Do you sense that's valid, the criticism or the perception that Rohman Powell is more susceptible to spin in India than Nicholas Pooran, and that's why you don't send him when spinners are bowling?
Yeah, but he plays in West Indies. He's used to playing in spin conditions.
Yeah.
And he
Almost
bats at
worse.
4 and 5.
100%.
CPL's worse.
Yeah. So he'll only not improve, but he's going to do more damage if he plays a lot more balls.
Very good question from Vijayendra and Allah, who's a regular viewer. Did SRH performance in the power play, especially Tripathi, make a real difference to the end outcome? Because Tom Kohler-Catmore had almost the opposite impact in the power play. Tripathi, big innings today?
Very
Massive.
important innings, yeah, because he just kept the strike rate going, took some really, really serious risks, and they paid off. He was looking really, really good until that brilliant slow ball got him caught out by again Yuzi Chahal. But that was a very, very important innings in the grand scheme of things.
In the previous encounter, Ashwin had bowled really well in the power play. Bowled those 2 overs for 12 and limited the damage in the power play, and then he really went after him today and really kind of swung the momentum in their favour.
The most significant thing for me about Tripathi was he honoured the brand that SRH are playing this year. So he went out there and said, okay, we lost an early one. I'm going to go out there and continue to honour the brand that we have bought into this year. He could have quite easily gone out there and be more conservative, given that they'd lost an early wicket and, been, say, 20 off 25.
Given he wasn't played all season.
Exactly.
So he's come in and played 2 innings in 2 playoff games.
Totally embraced the way they want to play, and he was the right man to do that.
Wonderful. Well done, Rahul Tripathi. MM says, did you pose this question quietly? This is a different MM. MM says, when it comes to big games, there is a psychological frailty to RR that needs to be addressed honestly. Any agreement there on?
Well, it wasn't me because there's too many big words for that. To be me.
And perfectly spelt as well. So
exactly, not SHR.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
On that note, is there a serious concern regarding their big match temperament? Rajasthan Royals.
Yeah, I would say so. So, that tactics as well, and then going a little defensive. Sanju Samson not coming good. There's a debate for that.
And in both playoff games, Samson's stocks are so high, and he's had probably his best season in many years.
Yeah.
But the 2 playoff games, you'd have loved for him to stand up.
Yeah.
True. I mean, if you go to see, they obviously won the last game. I don't think they got their tactics this game, and I think that the promotion of Ashwin has cost them more often than not, because I think that was a very big one. If Hetmyer had come in earlier, there could have been, again, it's all ifs and buts, but there could have been more impact on the game with him facing both left-arm spinners.
Umanna, on that point, has perhaps listened in to Sanju Samson's post-match comments, and we're live, so thank you for helping us with that. Sanju has said post-match, I believe, that they ran out of options in the middle overs against left-arm spin. And Umanna's added, well, therefore, why did they not send Hetmeyer earlier? The point that the panel is making repeatedly. Okay, Vijayendra also saying, Tom, good point. Do you believe RR's form could also have played significantly to their display? Poor form tends to give way to poor tactics, if we can call the last week or so of the league stage poor form.
Without a doubt, and we talked about this in a previous game when Rajasthan were going through a run of outs, in that you play with certain players in roles that they're not familiar with, as in push them down the order, like the Rothman Powell example, batting at 8, keeping Hetmeyer back late. All those things, all you're doing is you are forcing those players out of form instead of elevating them and giving them moments to shine. So they're impacting games like they should be impacting games by forcing, the examples of forcing Ashwin in front of him, the moment tonight where Hetmeyer had his perfect moment as a counter-punch match up against the left-arm spin, all those things. You can't form something that you can't suddenly switch on and switch off. You need time in the middle. It's like asking a bowler to come in and bowl a death over when for the last 3 weeks they haven't bowled 1 over in the last 4 overs of an innings, and suddenly in a big game saying, oh, Mitch, or Varun, please, you've got to bowl this death over. You don't have the feel. You don't have the feel for it. You don't have the rhythm for it. Yes, you can bowl in the other phase of the game, but it's a specific feel that you've got to have to be able to take that responsibility.
Right. There's an interesting situation of that this year, right, where CSK put Jadeja up into the middle order, and it was to get him some form, and as soon as he was back in form, they put him back down the bottom of the order, and he started finishing games and heading towards the end of the innings like he used to. So you're right, he was probably starved of those opportunities throughout the season to be able to have an impact, particularly when they'd already pretty much qualified.
Those two franchises have a very different approach. I mean, SRH take the game on, they have a very positive approach, where RR goes back to that defensive approach sometimes in the batting department especially. When they lose a wicket, they send Ashwin and they drag the game.
Largely we're seeing, I think we'll come to this when we do a more detailed review of RR, which we'll do, but the bowling seems to be top-notch. And Samson seems to have had a great year, even as captain, managing those bowlers. Somehow everything's just, the challenges seem with the batting.
They're just scared to send Hetmeyer up or Roman Powell up.
They're
just scared about that.
But on the other hand, you have guys like Tristan Stubbs, you have guys like Ramandeep, you have guys like Russell who come in really late with very few balls in hand and do the job as well. So if you're a finisher, yes, there's obviously an argument that they should have been sent up. But as a finisher, in T20s, sometimes more often than not, you're going to have less balls in hand and you're going to have to deliver, which a lot of the successful teams have done. Klaasen is an example. Yes, Klaasen, again, they've sent up the order quite a few times.
Came early.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Klaasen has been sent up quite a few times, but when it comes to a lot of other power hitters, they get very few balls, but they deliver the goods.
Yeah, I had a good conversation with Steve Smith at the start of the tournament, and I said, we're talking about coming up against New Zealand or someone in the playoffs, but I said, what is the mentality when you play a side who's been going well throughout the tournament? He said, well, we know that if we don't elevate our game and be more positive, then we're probably going to lose. And I think it's a really good point. I think SRH, with putting Klaasen out ahead of Nitesh Reddy today, they said, well, this is a positive move, and this is us trying to win the game, and Klaasen's a man who can get us to a score which we can defend. Whereas you're saying we're touching on the points where RR were just trying not to lose or not taking that positive step to put themselves in the frame to win the game.
Yeah, I guess they're trying to not lose the wickets of Hetmeyer and Powell too early.
Which
the thought process you would classify as negative, defensive.
Yeah.
And that's coming through our comments. I'm going to try and take a few more. Let's try and keep the answers slightly quicker so I can take a few more questions, gentlemen. Lovely conversation. I'm loving it very much.
That's good. Appreciate that.
And Kevin says, RR didn't trust Powell and Hetmeyer much. I think that could sum it. They hardly played 100 balls each this season. What else? I like this one from Color Kannadis. 20 crore and 24 crore were worth it.
Yeah, that's a very good point, actually.
Turned out well.
Well done. That's one of the...
That's very good. Yeah.
For the top comment of the season. Okay, well done with that. Cummins v Stark in the final it is then. What else do we see over here? If RR had been bowled, they could have opened with Samson because Tom Colacadmore killed the momentum in some ways. I sympathise. He's never played a T20 in India before and he's played 2 playoff games. He couldn't even play that game that was washed out, and perhaps whether that is something that is worth revisiting at all.
Well, his hitting, style is pretty similar. He just backs away and plays in one dimension. So he needs to work out. He needs to find other ways. He probably needs to step out, get inside the line, confuse the bowlers. So at this moment, I think bowlers are finding it easy to bowl to him.
Last one that I'll take will be from VVS. He says, some credit to SRH's support staff and our very own Gaurav Sundaraman for the SRH tactics. Clearly, the tactics used by RR were reason for their loss. So, GS, a shout out to you. I'd love to hear GS on all the big calls he's made on using Shahbaz and Abhishek today in the middle. But it would be a win that would give Dan Vittori, one of the greatest left-arm spinners of his time, a lot of satisfaction. I can't help but think maybe the left-arm spinners would have learned a thing or two.
I think he and Pat are making the calls.
Yeah.
Yeah, just quietly.
Okay, well, Vittori would have been keen to come and bowl as well today, I'm sure, with the surface
Absolutely.
that he saw.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right, but the impact was by the impact player in Shahbaz Ahmed. He is also our JBL Mute the World performer of the year. Okay, I'm going to try and put these on right now. Actually, Shahbaz and Abhishek can both share this segment. They've silenced a lot of critics, if there were. The world, Shahbaz certainly, after being left on the impact bench. Perhaps he may or may not even have had a role to play had they not lost a few wickets. But your thoughts, Tom Moody, on Shahbaz Ahmed's impact today?
Oh, I thought he had a great all-round game. You know, he came in when Sunrisers were staring down the barrel of a very under par score. They ended up with a competitive total, as it turned out, a monstrous total in the context of the game. But his left arm spin was terrific. He did the job when throwing the ball. He used the conditions exceptionally well.
Mitch, he did nothing spectacular and yet perfect for the
Yeah,
situation.
no, I thought he was great, and I think probably don't underrate the 18 off 18.
Yes.
It was a significant partnership there with Klaassen towards the end, and 3 for 23. That's match winning. That's match winning. And we've seen Jadeja do that time and time again in Chennai, and that was up there with one of the best, I guess, spells that we've seen.
He's known for his batting more than his bowling, but something like this, and suddenly you'll have Shahbaz back in the conversation, perhaps in that club of left-arm spin all-rounders that India would look at for the next T20 cycle, perhaps?
Yeah, he's got Akshar ahead of him, obviously, but he's got potential. When the condition suits him, he's not a bad bowler, but he's got his limitation, obviously. But today he did a magnificent job. And when the ball spins, he's in the game, and don't forget he's got Jaiswal out and then Parag out, 2 really important wickets. That Jaiswal wicket, I thought he'd been hit for a 6 and a 4, and then he cleverly threw it away, knowing that Jaiswal's going to do. So really good thinking there.
Good pre-auction trade from the franchise?
It's turning out to be really, really good, especially not so good for RCB, who've taken the other left-arm spinner. But obviously Jaiswal's wicket, just like Wasim was saying, was key because I don't think he shied away from the competition versus a left-hand batsman. Generally, you see left-arm spinners either hug the wide line or try to fire it into the pads, but he didn't do that. He kept the wickets in play, and that's exactly what he got. And after you get Jaiswal, who was on a roll, then you just get a lot of confidence going into your other overs.
All right, well done to Shahbaz Ahmed. He can put on some lovely JBL headphones or even take those Tune Beam Active noise-cancelling earphones that give you legendary JBL sound. He is our JBL Mute the World performer of the day with bat and ball. Right, before we wrap things up, we have a rapid-fire review, but I'd also like to spend a little time on Rajasthan Royals to just, if you have to now summarize their season, Tom, where would you start in terms of where they fell short for a team that dominated the early parts of the league stage?
Yeah, they're an interesting side, and this year is not too dissimilar to last year in that they showed a huge amount of promise. They've got every box ticked with regards to the balance of their squad, match winners, for all conditions. They've got an attack that can deal with it, and they've got a batting lineup. And I think the one real positive from this year is that Raunak Kapoor has arrived, and they've been incredibly patient with him, and he is paid back in spades. So, he's had an outstanding season at 4, and he's certainly a player for not only Rajasthan's future, but for India's future as well.
Yeah, let's talk positives. Raunak Kapoor, biggest positive. Your positive takeaway for RR this season?
I think, they've Sandeep Sharma, another great year. And then also I would say Jarrell. I think Jarrell came good towards the end. I thought he's going to be an exceptional talent, and it's going to be fascinating how does he fit in their structure going forward. He's a guy who I think is going to go on to do big things in this format and other formats as well for India. So, yeah, they've unearthed some good talents and good performances. And I really hope Sandeep Sharma gets the rewards in the next auction for what he's done this year.
Sure.
I think he's been an exceptional IPL bowler for such a long period of time.
Yep. Sandeep Sharma, Raunak Kapoor, other positives, RR?
I think they got their bowling really right this year and their top order. Avish Khan was another revelation because even though he was slightly expensive in certain games, he was picking up wickets. And I think the story of this IPL has been that the more wickets you pick up, the more matches you're going to win. Because if you're just going to be really defensive and not get that many wickets, it's just the opponents, especially the batsmen, just run away with it. So I think Avish Khan was a really good one for them. He and Sandeep Sharma together proved that you know what, you don't have to depend on a lot of overseas bowlers, and they didn't have to play in Andre Berger that much just because they were both bowling really well in tandem.
Wasim, any other positives? Sanju Samson, the captain perhaps? Is he done well?
Yeah, I think he did okay. Obviously, his own performance could have been better, especially in the playoffs. But I think Raunak Kapoor has been biggest positive for me. Batting at number 4, doing so well. He's shown a lot of maturity. He'll be disappointed about today, but I think he's been the biggest positive for them.
Anyone giving Samson a very good rating for captain?
I think he's done a good job.
Yeah.
I think he's done I don't think he's 10 out of 10, but I think he's done a very good job. I think he's also dictated by a lot of the tactics that they have, which we've discussed, and he's in a way buying into that strategy that's coming from off the field.
All right, let's look at the challenges now, or the criticisms of RR as we review their season. Chahal's form at all towards the end, was that significant?
Yeah, I think he doesn't have that many variations. That's what I feel. When he gets hit, he tries to bowl that slider and not bowl the overspin a lot more. He throws at wide line, and somebody who bats really well against him, using that reverse sweep or hitting to cover. I think sometimes he looks a little clueless. We found in this season, and he's in the middle overs. He's somebody who they look after, taking wickets. So when he doesn't take that wickets, I think RR looks in trouble.
Miss Joss Butler big time, didn't they?
Massive miss, Joss Butler. They obviously need to bolster their reserves, because not just Joss Butler, Jurel didn't fire for most of the season this year, and they didn't have a domestic batter who could step in and take his position, and that's why he kept playing. Obviously, he's on the back of a good test series, back of a good year last year, but if they had a really good backup, they might have rested him for a few games and tried out somebody else. So I think that their reserves were slightly short, and if going into the next auction cycle, they would definitely be looking at a good reserve for Joss Butler, and also a few good middle order reserves, because their middle order struggled throughout the season.
Yeah, I think we can add to the international reserves. The first choice are top notch with Hetman, Trent Bolt and Butler, but is there a bigger gulf with Donovan Ferreira, Tom Collar-Cadmore? Berger was good, but it's his first season. Do you sense there's a gulf there and they need to address that?
Well, there's a trend between some of the teams that haven't performed well this year, is that they've gone for players who perform domestically but haven't done it at the top level. So there's players sitting at home or going to the World Cup who have had good international series or careers to date who aren't in this IPL, and I think that's probably where they missed it. You can do well domestically in your own conditions, but you've also got to have some kind of backing in Indian conditions and at international level where there's a bit more pressure.
Players that you would like to build the squad with going forward, you'd obviously put Jaiswal, I'm guessing, right up there with Samson. Others that you can realistically look to retain or buy back at an auction?
Well, you got Jaiswal, Samson, Butler, Bolt,
Parag?
Parag would be certainly the first 5 that you'd be looking at.
Chahal, is Chahal part of that too?
And then Chahal you'd have to look at, because a quality Indian spinner, is an absolute worth its weight in gold.
Yeah. Any other name that would be above those that Tom mentioned, with an Avesh Khan or a Sandeep Sharma? You must remind viewers, Prasidh Krishna is part of this team. He's missed 2 IPLs now, but
that's going to be subject to his fitness, because he's missed 2 IPLs. He's had a few surgeries, a few recurrent injuries, so he's going to have to obviously play the domestic scene, prove his fitness, and then come into the auction again.
But also a significant thing that they missed out on qualifier 1. Who knows? If they would have just kept their form, nicked the first place. Such a huge advantage, isn't it?
It was hot the other night in Gujarat. It was boiling. Then you have to travel. Then you've got to come out in Chennai, which is as hot, but with humidity. So fatigue definitely comes into it.
Yeah, especially in Chennai, of all places. Right, that is our Rajasthan Royals review. Lots of more comments coming in, but let me thank you very much for sending them through, and I promise to take as many more in what will be our last portion of the final. Maybe I'll take some in the pre-show as well, so tune in at the final day then, but we will not leave you without our rapid fire review, of course. So let's get straight into it. Quick fire review of qualifier number 2. Tom Moody, please rate how well Pat Cummins captained this side today.
Yeah, I think Pat did a very good job. I like the way that he seems very calm under pressure. They could have easily at the halfway mark sort of panicked, but he set the tone with the ball himself. He used his spin very well. He backed his spin. And he, had the whole, group thinking very positively throughout the whole innings.
Time up. Mitch, your turn. No due today. Did that work against Rajasthan's decision to chase at the toss?
I think there was due, but it just wasn't as much as they thought. So it actually ended up working for Sunrisers, where it got a little bit sticky, the wicket, and turned a little bit more. So, yep, the amount of dew that came in probably affected that.
All right. Varun Aaron, how did Shahbaz and Abhishek have such an impact on a night when Chahal and Ashwin both went wicketless?
Huge impact. I thought Ashwin and Chahal, especially Ashwin, bowled too many on-pace balls, too many variations. Maybe if he had bowled a few traditional off-spinners, we could have seen a little more turn. I'm not saying it would have turned massive, but a little more. Whereas you see, obviously, they bowled in the second half where the wicket was helping them, but Abhishek and Shahbaz bowled a really good pace.
All right. Wasim, what was the most impressive aspect of Heinrich Klaasen's 50 today? Another key innings to get them to a score.
Yeah, I think when the openers got out, even though Travis had batted for a while, but I think he's the most important player, considering Markram had got out and Rahul Tripathi had got out. His knock was pivotal in them getting to a score where they needed to, even though he got out 2 or 3 overs before, but it still was a good enough score.
And finally, I can throw this back to you, Tom. 37 of 15. How vital was the Tripathi power play burst to the final outcome?
I think it was really important. He could have easily gone into his shell to try to build an innings, but he sort of maintained the brand of cricket that Sunrisers want to play this year, and he sort of took it to the Rajasthan Royals attack and got them out of the blocks and gave them a great power play.
That is a wrap of the rapid fire review. Nobody picked Tripathi, in the impact zone pre-game. But I just like to point out, because there are 4, I was dictated to by my producers not to pick today. Had I picked, would you like to see who I wrote at the start of the show?
No.
Would you like to see it? No? Okay.
So I know you want to boast.
This is not my finest penmanship, but there's Tripathi right there, if you could see Tripathi there.
Okay.
There's Avish there as well. Don't worry about that scratch.
What's the scribble?
The scribble is actually removing Markram and putting Reddy, so you can know I'm not just reacting to it. But anyway, it's irrelevant.
Well done.
I won't feature there. So I've said my part. This won't stay in the final cut of the impact zone, but this will, impact zone. Ah, Mr. Jaffer.
Oh, yes.
Back with a bang, and it's another hammering in the qualifier. That's where we wanted you back, Wasim, even though the couch got crowded.
I thought Varun Aaron would have been closer.
Parag and Chahal, not a big impact.
Took me down.
Tom, how about that from Ashwin for you? Player of the match of the last game.
What he did, I chose Ashwin purely on his quote.
Yes.
At the beginning of I just thought it was so mysterious that I thought he's going to do something special today.
He did.
But he didn't know whether he was What were the two different things?
Wicket happening.
And wicket happening.
Yeah, he was neither wicket taking or wicket happening.
Nothing was happening.
Nothing was happening, as Wasim says. Right. Anyway, that's quite a significant minus, but Wasim will gladly accept the points. Any other noticeable points? Nice little 71 from Klaasen, even though he's about 71% of Mitch's points for the day. Is that a right calculation? Yeah, it is. 107 minus the 9.3 that Bhuvi gave. That's harsh on poor old
Tough, isn't
Bhuvi.
it?
Yeah,
Tough
that's
on Bhuvi.
And Jaiswal and Sandeep Sharma, even though Wasim's picked up a minus 10 from good old Hetty. Abhishek with 80. Very handy too again with his bowling. All right, gentlemen. Thank you very much for an exhaustive analysis on qualifier number 2. I'm tempted to bring all 4 of you back to the final.
Did I get my outrageous right? 3
Outrageous?
or more sixes.
Sir, I think the panel put pressure and asked for 4. So you will have to make do. And you had changed it to Hetmaya hitting winning runs.
Okay.
Yeah, true.
So we were counting the sixes for no point actually. He could have hit
The only thing he hit was his off stump.
Oh, yes, true.
Funny man. All right, we leave it there. Thank you to Tom Moody and Mitch McClenaghan and Varun Aaron and Wasim Jaffer. We will look forward to the company of these fine gentlemen on what is the final day of IPL 2024. KKR against Sunrisers at the Chepauk to win the 2024 edition of the tournament. Look forward to your company then on Maruti Suzuki Arena presents ESPN Cricket for Timeout, powered by JBL. Do download the mobile app. Plenty that will be said and discussed about Rajasthan Royals, whose wonderful campaign comes to a sad end in the qualifier too. Kumar Sangakkara addresses the media as we speak, and we can't wait for what promises to be a good final between two of the strong teams, powerhouse teams of IPL 2024. We'll see you there.
Introducing the epic new Swift. Time to go swifting.